Hi, remember me? My name's Tom. I talk about F1 Fantasy. It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been 3 weeks, in fact, since we last had a race, and we're finally going into Singapore weekend. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing, obviously, my team selection for this race. I'll have a look at a couple of alternatives, including a budget build. But before I get into all of that, I kind of want to have a little quick discussion just regarding the sentiments of what's going on. So if you're not aware, there's been some serious price changes over the last couple of weeks. It may have hurt you if you've not been paying attention, and you can probably benefit quite a bit if you have been paying attention, which is what I'm hoping what I've done. So I'm going to talk briefly about that. Let's just discuss what's happened with the prices. So PlayOn, the people that make the game or behind the game, who, the people that don't talk to us and don't let us know anything that's happening, we just have to kind of guess what's happening. They have finally, it would appear, got rid of this Hacker Man. I'm not going to go into depth and any sort of depth about who the Hacker Man is. I've covered Hacker Man in many previous videos, but it looks like he's finally dead in the water. And PlayOn have taken back control. Now they've taken back control, and they're massively been adjusting the prices. And in fact, you look at Leclerc as an example. 20.1 million. He's gone up almost 1.5 million since the last race. So now you can't turbo drive him unless you already had him selected as a turbo driver. So that's a bit of a bummer. Because I expect a lot of people come back to their teams after this little break, thinking, oh yeah, Leclerc's on a race streak, we can put the turbo driver on him. If you haven't already selected him as your turbo driver, I don't think you can now actually select him. It won't let you. So you're going to have to pick someone like Sainz or Perez, most likely, which is a real bummer. I think a lot of people are going to get hurt by that, which is unfortunate. But again, PlayOn don't actually talk to us about these things. You have to constantly be paying attention to what's going on. But anyway, and other people you can see down here as well. Red Bull have gone up 2.6 million. That's almost an average of a million a week since the last race. That is insane compared to what's happened in the rest of the season. Even Hackerman hasn't had that much power. PlayOn have been massively adjusting the prices, obviously trying to rejig everyone so everyone's kind of more befitting of their price, trying to make everyone sort of tighten the pack together a little bit and make people a bit more in the right area, basically. So Ricardo's dropped, Hamilton's dropped, both not been having fantastic seasons considering their prices. Tsunoda's plummeted. Some people like Ocon haven't moved at all because they're kind of, I think, PlayOn obviously think that that's a good price for them. That's fine by me because I quite like the option of having both Ocon and Alonso. Now they're both around the 12.3, 12.4 mark. So going forward, I could be seeing a team which involves both Ocon and Alonso in the team, potentially. We'll see how that works out, particularly as Leclerc, after this race for me, I cannot turbo drive him. So I'll be interested in, does Leclerc even get in the team past that? Because is he in that now? Is he now in the bracket with George Russell where it's just awkward? You can't turbo drive him. He's a little bit dearer than everyone else. So could we be seeing Leclerc getting booted out of a lot of teams and then put the turbo driver on the likes of Sainz or Perez or maybe even Norris or possibly even Alonso or Ocon? I don't know. That's for another day, but it's kind of interesting, I think, to see how much the prices have changed and whether it's a good thing or not. Me personally, and I can't change anything. I personally would have left it if I was PlayOn. I wouldn't have bothered fiddling with it at all. I just, if you've got back control from Hackerman, great, but leave it as it is. Let it go organically with how the players are doing stuff and how maybe kind of based on performance going from race, from now to the end of the season. But PlayOn decided to just completely change everything around very gradually rather than just doing it. They've given us a bit of a chance, a bit of credit to them. They've given us a chance to sort of keep up with what's going on. But with 6 races to go, was there much point in doing that? Probably not, but they've done it now, so we have to deal with these new price changes. And I expect a lot of people, like I say, if you've been paying attention, you're going to have a huge budget. On the last race, I had a budget of like 108 million, and now I'm on 114 million. Like, what? Have I really gained like 6 million? Like, yes, I have, because PlayOn have gone crazy. So yeah, onto the team selection, because obviously what's happened with what the price changes has affected my team selection for this week, because I've already made 2 of my 3 substitutions going into Singapore. And those substitutions were Norris to Sainz, because Norris was dropping, Sainz was climbing. And just by making that simple early substitution, I've gained like almost a million with the price differences. And then the other change I made was Alonso to Ocon. I could see Ocon wasn't moving, so I got rid of Alonso, who's dropped about, I don't know, 0.3 or 0.4 million, I think. So I basically kind of saved myself around about 1 to 1.5 million by doing those early substitutions, which isn't, I don't know. I think it's probably worth it, maybe in the over the next few races. But like I've just said, there's only 6 races left, so was it really worth it? Tying my hands together for this Singapore race and basically committing myself to a team that looks like this. But that's the position I found myself in. I think a few other people have probably done the same thing when they saw the price changes going so crazy. Like if you've had a wild card over the last couple of weeks, you've probably benefited even more. You've probably gained like 8 or 9 million, who knows? But yeah, this is the team I've got. I've got one substitution left, so most likely the only change I'll make potentially, potentially if Stroll doesn't look good, although I anticipate the Aston Martin to be fairly decent around Singapore, then Stroll could become someone like a Schumacher if I really wanted him to. I think Haas should be also quite decent, and Schumacher's been in good form recently. He's still fighting for a seat. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes exactly, but Schumacher could be a good replacement for him. I probably wouldn't go for one of the Williams drivers, in particular Albon, who's now confirmed is coming back in Singapore after his appendicitis and respiratory failure. Everything, thankfully he's okay, and he'll be racing again in Singapore, which is great news. But I don't think the Williams is going to be particularly good around here. The Williams is the main strength is in a straight line. We all know that. We've seen a couple of purple sectors recently when it's when the sector like for example Spa is like basically a straight line. The Williams is really quick. There is no such thing as a straight line around Singapore. It is literally, as my friend coined it when I was playing F1 2021 with him, it's a bit of a cock tease of a track. It's like, there's going to be a nice straight, corner, straight and corner. Up to third gear, fourth gear, back down to third. It's just constant frustration. Singapore is certainly quite a unique track. Like I say, very high downforce, no straight. So yeah, the Williams drivers probably not ideal for this one. So the only other change I'd likely make is Ocon into Alonso. So I'm going to base that purely on what happens in practice sessions, obviously. If Ocon's looking really good, I'll just leave it as it is, leave him in there. If Alonso looks superior, then I'll shove Alonso in. Quite simple for that. So this is going to be my team. I've got the Red Bulls on a race streak. Leclerc Turbo Driver locked in on the race streak as well. I haven't heard anything about any grid penalties or anything at the moment. I would find it very unlikely that there will be any grid penalties because of the nature of the fact that it's just going to be difficult to overtake around this track. So it would just be a bit silly if you did take a grid penalty. The only grid penalties I can imagine would be like kind of emergency need for a new engine or something if something goes drastically wrong in qualifying or whatever. So it shouldn't be any grid penalties, so the Leclerc should be a pretty safe turbo driver if you've got him locked in. If you don't have him as a turbo driver, like I say, probably Sainz or Perez you're looking at. Have a look at the practice sessions and then pick based on that. But yeah, this is going to be my team, like I say, barring those potential couple of changes going into Singapore. I have considered looking at Mercedes. Mercedes are on a double streak. If we have a quick look, if we get rid of Red Bull for a second, you see Mercedes here on a double streak. So it's very tempting. You can see how many points they've got now compared to Ferrari. They're really beating down the Ferrari boys now. So yeah, it's been tempting to look at like Mercedes, even George Russell. I think Mercedes should be quite strong around here. George Russell has been interviewed recently and saying he anticipates it to be quite a good track for Mercedes. I think they could be a good shout, but for me personally, I'm not going to have them. But I can definitely see a world where you get George Russell in your team. Let's put Red Bull back in there. So if we were going to go for George Russell, and potentially the people that have been burnt by Leclerc and they can no longer turbo drive him, maybe you're interested in bringing in George Russell as a result. I mean, he has gone up in price a little bit as well, but you can probably still afford him if you cut down someone like Stroll into a Schumacher. If you've got the budget, a lot of people will be on like 115 million plus, so you could afford a team like this. If you want to go kind of safe with the George Russell build, you could. If you don't quite have the budget, again, you can just drop down like Ocon down to whoever you want, really. You could go double Haas. You could go Bottas. To be honest, out of the Alfa Romeos, I'd probably pick Guan Yu Zhou at the moment over Bottas. Bottas just hasn't been performing very well recently. Guan Yu Zhou is super cheap. He's lost $1 million in value, so he's actually one of the bargain. He's in the bargain basement down here at the Haas and the Williams. So even Tsunoda as well. So yeah, I could definitely see Guan Yu Zhou being potential. He's done all right recently. He's sort of out qualifying, out racing Bottas recently. So definitely an option to go with a team like that. I'd be more than happy if I had a bit less of a budget. But for me personally, like I said, I've already made my substitutions, kind of locked in on that template team, and I'm not going to be touching the Mercedes in this particular race. But Mercedes is definitely going to be interested, and I think they are bringing. I think there are rumoured to be some upgrades for them as well, and I think there's definitely going to be some upgrades, interestingly, for the Alpines. So let's go back to that. So that bodes well for if you're going for the Alpine drivers, and if you've got an absolute ton of budget, this would be the dream. This would be the dream. The ton of budget would be Alonso and Ocon with the template. Like, I still 2.8 million short of that, but there will be some people out there that can afford a team like this. And how strong does this team look? It looks amazing. So if you can afford it, I would go for this. The alternative, I guess, is getting in Max Verstappen over the likes of Perez and Sainz. Obviously, no one's got that much budget, but in order to get Verstappen in, who's been on fantastic form, you would have to drop down to, like, probably out of all these guys down here, my pick would probably be Mick Schumacher. He's just in good form at the moment. Yeah, he's just done slightly better than Magnussen, in my opinion, recently, and the hazards should be fairly decent around here, I would think. That leaves me 3.5 million short, so again, I'd probably have to drop back down to someone like a Stroll, though I can't personally quite afford that, but a team like this definitely is feasible, and maybe by the time the deadline comes around, I could afford a team like this, but I'm not going for it personally because I've already used up my substitutions. But you could definitely go over a team like this, and if you can't afford Stroll, then you just go for the double budget. You could go Guan Yu Zhou, you could get double hazards in there, Magnussen and Schumacher if you want, although I'd rather go with someone alternative to try and get those teammate points as well. So I could definitely see a team like this, and I think Verstappen himself, if we quickly go have a look at the spreadsheet, 2 seconds, if we throw it, actually no, let's have a look at the last few races. So we've got Verstappen here, 45 points, first place. We go to Zandvoort, 54 points, first place. We go to Spa, 49 points, first place. Like, the list goes on, basically. First place, 55 points. France, first place, 45 points. So there is definitely a strong argument to say that Verstappen just should be in our teams. And after this, providing he finishes in the top 10, which is obviously highly likely, providing he actually finishes the race, which is likely, he'll be on a race streak going into the next race in Japan. So yeah, you could potentially look at getting in Max Verstappen kind of early on into the Singapore race and just going to go for him. You could go for the double up on Verstappen. You could, if you wanted to have stronger drivers, you could drop down Red Bull into the Ferrari, although I wouldn't probably encourage that at the moment. But that would probably allow you to afford someone like Carlos Sainz, although I'm 1.3 million short of that. You could go all in on Ferrari, although I just don't like the idea of that. You could go for Vettel or something. I'm a tiny bit short, but it all depends on the budget. The budget range of budgets right now must be huge. There's some people who are probably up in like the 117s, 118, something crazy like that. And there are people who have not been paying attention who are down in like the 104s, the 105s, who are just crying. So anyway, yeah, I think definitely Verstappen is a consideration. Not for me personally, because of reasons I've already said, but I can definitely see it happening. Let's reset it 1 second. Like I say, for a budget team, I would say you want to kind of go template. So regardless of your budget, you can definitely afford Red Bull, Sainz, Leclerc, Perez. Get them in your team, and then the other 2 slots you just fill in with whichever kind of trash you can put in there, basically. So, you get rid of Ocon, you get rid of Stroll. If your budget's really bad, you're going to have to go like Magnussen, Schumacher or something. So that would be, 105 million roughly? So you could, with 105 budget roughly, I don't know, I haven't worked out the exact maths, you can afford a team like this. If you can get that sort of 4 slots filled up with Red Bull and Ferrari, that would be fantastic if you've got a budget. And then, yeah, that's pretty much that. So this Saturday, I'm not going to be doing a live stream, unfortunately, because I am busy doing stuff. So I won't be any live stream, I'm afraid. I'll try and do a video Friday evening after the first 2 practice sessions. And then we've got Japan, I believe. I think it's the following week, isn't it? Is it a double header? I think it's a double header. I haven't actually looked at the calendar, but I think Japan's coming up the week after. And I will see if I can do a live stream for that, because I know a lot of you guys like the live streams, and they're good fun for me as well. So yeah, that's it for me. That's my team. Kind of, like I said, I'll just go back to the original team. This is going to be my team, basically, because of what I've already spoken about. The price changes have kind of locked me into this, but I think it's a strong team, nevertheless. And that's pretty much what I've got to say about it. So yeah, I'll hopefully see you in a couple of days for a little bit more of an update after a couple of practice sessions. And that's all from me for now. Goodbye.